Okay, so today, right now that we've talked about, in the first lesson, we talked about variables and taking the user's input. Second lesson, we talked about conditionals, right, to redirect program flow depending on the user's input. The third lesson, we learned about lists, right, how to create many variables at once. And the fourth lesson, we learned about for loops, how to repeat certain lines of code multiple times. So today we'll be talking about another concept, which is called functions. So the way we're talking about functions, and you see that they're quite powerful. Yeah. So yeah. So what is a function? Right? A function is a subroutine. So what this means, okay, so let me just set up my screen a little bit so that I can okay, so I'm just gonna drag this like this. Okay, so yeah, I guess this is fine. So let me just clear the code here. So a function, right, is is a subroutine that you can call multiple times. So let's just start off with talking about how to declare a function. So to declare a function, you use the def keyword. So it stands for define. So you write def, right? Then you write the function name. So in this case, let's call my function say hi. And then you have to put these round brackets after you have the function name, like open and close, and then you write the colon. So inside these round brackets, right, you take in, later I'll talk about parameters, but for now, let's leave it blank. So you can put in stuff inside here, but for now, let's leave it blank. So then I write colon, and when I press enter, you see that Python has created a little bit of space for me. That's the indentation. So now whatever code that I write inside here, in this case, I print hi, right? This code line 2 is inside the function because we have this indentation here. So this is similar to conditionals and for loops. Okay, so far? Okay. So if I write this like this and I press run, we see that wait, there's no output. And even though we have a print hi over here, right, but I press run, there's still no output. It's because we haven't called the function yet. So the function is currently kind of sleeping. It's just sleeping there until you call it. So um, so how do I call it, right? When I go to the next line, without the if I could without the indentation, right? To call the function, I write the function's name and I put the round brackets to call the function. So note that the round brackets here, yeah, this is when you want to call a function, and this is when you want to define the function. So when I press run, you see, hey, say hi has been called. So we see hi on the screen. Okay, so far? Yeah. So what if I call the function another time at line 4? So if I press run, you see it prints hi twice. So what's happening, right, is that Python, I'll just step you through what Python sees. So it goes to line 1, then you're telling Python, I want to define a new function. Okay, then it goes to line 2, and you're telling Python, this code, because of the indentation, this print hi code, right, is inside the function, inside the say hi function. Then Python is like, okay, sure. Then Python moves on to the next line. And since this code at line 3 does not have the indentation, Python knows that you're done with defining the function. So Python would execute line 3, and when execute line 3, it calls the function say hi. So line 3 will actually cause Python to go into the function and execute line 2. So that's why we see hi on the screen. That's the first hi, right? And then so after it executes the function, it goes out of it. Then line 4, you call the function again, and that's why you see another hi. So the order of execution, right, in this case is kind of like 3, 2, right? Then 4, 2. Yeah. The in terms of the lines of code. So execute line 3 calls the function, so executes line 2, then it exits the function, so it executes line 4, and line 4 calls the function, so it executes line 2. So the order of the in a sense what Python executes in this case is 3, 2, then 4, 2. Yeah. Okay, so this might be a bit confusing, but yeah, you'll get more used to it with more examples. So let's say I print by over here. So do you want to guess the output? It's okay to get it wrong.
Uh,
Yeah, it's perfectly okay. Just hazard a guess.
Is it is it high by?
Okay, close, close. In fact, it's high by, but the last part is still high. So what
Oh,
happens is the order of execution, right? In this case, is going to be 4, 2, then 5, and then 6, 2. So you see, it just continues trying to run 4, 5, and 6. It just goes on to go sequentially. But each time you call a function, right, it will say, okay, wait here, wait here. I go call the function first. So you go into the function, execute line 2. Okay, so that's why,
okay, okay.
yeah, makes sense, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
if I change, yeah, so if I do, let's say hi, and say hi, then can you guess what the output is going to be now?
Uh, is this hi?
Yep, very good. So it just calls the function 3 times, and so it'll be 4, 2, 5, 2, 6, 2. Right. So that's order execution. So the first thing we can learn from functions is that why a function is useful is because you can call them multiple times. Yeah. So at the moment you may say, wait, then what's the point? Can't I just write a loop and say for I in range 3 print hi? Wouldn't that be more convenient? And the answer is functions can take the difference between functions, right? The special thing about functions that gives it value is taking in parameters. So um, let's say I define now let's replace all this code, right, with a new function. So if I write define, if I define a function and I call it square, I can call it any name you want, right, as long as it follows the same rules as variables, so no spaces and it's case sensitive. So if I define a function called square, and now let's take in one parameter. So how do we take in a parameter? Inside the round brackets, I write the parameter name, the variable name. So the parameter is a variable, right? And I write colon. And then when I press enter, once again, I get an indentation. So in this case, let's just print x times x. Okay. So if I try to run this code now, you see that nothing has executed, nothing has printed out to the screen. And this is because I did not call the function yet, right? Okay, so far? Okay, then, so let's go ahead and call the function. How do we call the function again? We write square, right? Because square is the function's name. And inside this round bracket now, I'll pass in, instead of writing x, right? I'll pass in a value that I want x to take. So if I write 3, then what this means is that I'm passing in 3 into the function. So inside the function, x will be equal to 3. So you print 3 times 3, which is why when I press run, I see 9. Does that make sense? Okay, so if I go ahead and run this, let's say with square 5, can you guess what the output is going to be? It's okay to get it wrong.
Uh, so I think the output is 25.
Okay, that's for the square 5. That's for what happens when you call square 5. But
Oh,
if I call, mhm,
you must, as in the whole thing. I
yeah, the
think,
whole
is
thing.
it 9 and 20?
Very good. Yeah, so 9 and 25. So yeah, the output for the whole code is 9 and 25. But you're right to say that the output for the square 5, right? If I didn't have this, if I comment it out, then I just see 25. Okay? Yeah. So then so you see now that the value of functions, right, is not only can I call them multiple times, I can call them with multiple different parameters, right? I can call them multiple times with different parameters, and for each choice of the parameter, each time I call them a different parameter, I get a different output. So if I do this, then you see it prints 3 times 3, which is 9, prints 5 times 5, which is 25, it prints 25 times 25, which is 625. Okay, so far? So you can imagine now that functions can be useful if you want to do some calculation within the function. So maybe I can write a define calculate BMI function, takes in height and weight, then it prints height, is it is weight over height squared, right? So let's say I call calculate BMI. So let's say my height in meters is 1.75 and my, okay, I haven't talked about multiple parameters yet, but if you want to pass in multiple parameters, you just put a comma between them. Okay. Yeah. So then let's say I do this, then let's say my weight is, let's say it's 59. Then if I press run, then you see that now by calling calculate BMI, I pass the height and weight into the function. So h equals to 1.75, w equals to 59. Then this is my this is the calculated BMI that's printed to the screen. Okay, so far? Yeah, so if I want to take in multiple parameters, then I separate them with commas, right? And yeah, and when I call it, right, then I have to separate them, the values I'll pass in with commas as well, and it'll be like matching 1 to 1. So in this case, H will match up with, H will be assigned the value 1.75 and W will be assigned the value 59, as you can see denoted by the comma here separating them, okay? Yeah, so you can see that the value of functions is mainly in the parameters because I can pass in different parameters, and in so doing, I can alter the behavior of the function, right? And the function can help me calculate something useful. Okay, yeah. So if I want to calculate somebody else's BMI, I just need to call the same function, right? And I pass in the other person's height and weight, and you calculate his BMI. Okay, okay. Yeah. So that's the key value in functions, and functions are not restricted to just printing numbers to the screen. So in this case, let's say I have a function which called make a list, right, which takes in a parameter called size, and then in the end it creates an empty list and uses a for loop to append size number of items to the list, right, and I'll append I each time. So in this case, if I call make a list with parameters 3, it forms the list. You see it print out to the screen the list 0, 1, 2. If I call it with 10, you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I call the function with the parameter size equals to 25, then it will print a very, very long list. So it's not just restricted to numbers, like printing numbers. Its function is just a very general concept. Okay, so far? Okay, so now I'll bring you over to the Replit. Yeah, you can go and join, you can go and yeah, tell me when you're there. So now you'll be doing question 1 and 2. Yeah.
Okay, I'm inside.
Okay. So yeah, so the instructions on the right will tell you what to do. Very good.
Do I put anything in the back?
You don't need to. The
Oh,
parameters are optional. In this case, we don't need to pass in any parameters. So yeah. Yep, very good. Yeah, print. Mm, you can yeah, sure, you can print that to the screen also. That works. Um okay, so now when you press, oh, you don't need to write the hashtag because the hashtag is just comments, right? Remember that comments, they're not executed. It's just for
oh,
me to tell you what to do. Yeah,
okay.
so at the end of instruction 1, you press run, right? And nothing happens, nothing appears
Yeah.
on the screen because we have not called the function. Okay,
Oh,
so now step 2, right?
oh, the function.
Okay,
Wait, there's no indentation for this.
correct. Yeah, there's no indentation for it. Yep, that's why I say when I say in the main body code, right? In the main code body, that means outside of the function. Yep. So does it make sense that it says say hi now?
Oh, yeah.
What you print to the screen doesn't have to be say hi lah. So maybe you can change it to hi Sean or something
Oh,
in case you confuse it with the function name. Oh no, I mean in the print statement.
oh, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Because
Yeah, yeah,
the print is inside the define.
yeah. Correct. Yeah. So because I don't want you to confuse with the idea that you need to print the function name. Yeah, very good.
Oh, yeah.
Then, okay.
Okay.
So okay. So then we
Another
can,
line.
yeah,
Oh, press run.
yeah. Yeah, so now you see it prints twice because you called the function twice, once in line 3 and once in line 4. Okay, then yeah, so we are done with the first part. So let's go on to you can click submit and go on to the second
Okay.
one. Okay, so in the second one, we're going to take in parameters. Um, in this case, in this case, I want
Oh yeah.
mm, I I wanted the parameter name to the function name to be called square. So
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
square. Yeah, that's right. So that's the function name. Then it takes in a parameter. It takes in a parameter called x. So in this case, it's not
Oh,
the
okay.
value. Yeah, that's right. Correct. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Um.
Okay.
And and you can read instruction line 2.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hmm. Um. Yeah. Okay. So
Nothing appears.
correct.
And where
Very good. So must not have the indentation if you want to call it. Mm. Okay. Oh, okay. So we have seen now first a small bug, right? So do you know how to fix this?
uh I should put square x equals to 3.
Uh, that's not exactly the error. That doesn't fix the x times x that's
Oh,
displayed on the screen right now. Okay, so here's a hint, right? Because right now you put x times x inside the quotes is an entire string. So it literally prints out x times x. But what you want, right, is to print out um what you want is to access x as a variable. So you don't want it to be inside the string.
oh, so wait. I take out something.
Yep, correct. So you take
Oh,
out
I take out the apostrophe.
correct. Yeah, that's right. So yep, that's very good. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So now you have correctly printed. Uh, so now the key difference is that when you want to call a variable, then you don't have the quotes.
Oh,
Yeah, if not, Python will take it literally as the variable name. Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that's right. Okay, very good. So yeah, do you understand why is the following output?
yeah, I understand.
Okay, great. So okay, now let's go back to the slides, right? So I'm going to talk about returning values. So okay, this part is okay if is a bit difficult. So the idea of returning a value, right, is that okay, so let's say I clear all this. So let's say I define a function called square again, and I have x. So if I print x times x, right, then let's say I call square of 3. Then when I run this, I see 9 appear on the screen. But let's say I wanted the function to not only I wanted the code to give me this 9 to play with, because you can imagine if your function was a little bit longer and more complicated, and you spend a lot of effort trying to calculate the value, only to have it just appear on the screen, right? Then and then the value is the number is like lost forever. Then it's a bit of a waste. So what if I want to what if I want the function to return something to the caller? So what I mean by this, right, is let's say, right, I want to store the what the output of the function in a variable. Then instead of doing print, right, I can do return x times x. So instead of printing it to the screen, I'm returning the value x times x to the caller. So now is when I run this, at the moment we don't see any output, but what has actually been executed, right, is that y is now has the value 9, right? But because we didn't print it to the screen, we don't see it. So you have to go ahead and print y. Okay, then we see Python is a bit laggy. Okay, by Python, okay. Okay, Python was crashing a little bit. Okay, now we see 9. So what is happening over here is that previously we also saw 9 appear on the screen, but there's something conceptually different happening here now, right? Now, when we call square 3, right, x equals to 3 goes into the function. So now x is the value 3. So now when we write return 3 times 3, it returns 9. So what happens is that this square of 3 is effectively being replaced by the value 9. So what happens when you return a value is that the caller of the function, right, by calling square of 3, whatever value they return, the square of 3, the function call will be replaced by the value. So when we return 9, it's effectively saying y equals to 9. Does that make sense? Right? Which is why in the next line, we see when we print y, we see 9. So now the nice thing is that now our variable y, um, our variable 9 now stores our variable y now stores whatever the function returned. So now we can do whatever manipulation we want with it. So let's say y equals y plus 1 and then print y. So perhaps you want to guess what the output of this function is going of this code is going to be. It's going to there's two print statements, which means that there are two outputs.
Is it 9 and 10?
Yep, very good. So it's going to be 9 and 10. And yeah, so that's the can you see that if we had just printed x times x in the function, right? We cannot bring the value that we calculated out of the function because we're just printing it to the screen directly if we just wrote print x times x. But because now we wrote return, we can bring the value that we calculated inside the function out of the function to use to continue manipulating it in the main code. Yeah,
Oh,
does that make sense? Okay, so yeah, so now let's so yeah, that's the key value add. I think for me, when I first started learning return, right, I also didn't really understand what's the point of returning it. But now I understand that when you return something, you can use whatever you calculated in the function to do useful stuff outside of the function. Yeah, and there's a lot more flexibility involved. So let's say I continue writing this. Let's say I continue writing this with y equals the square of y. So then, and I print y. So there's going to be 3 outputs, right? Can you guess what the 3 outputs is going to be? So now I'm passing in y, right? After
yeah.
calculating y equals to 10, right? At line 6, y equals to 10. But
Oh,
now,
okay. It's 100.
very good. Yeah. So the total output is going to be 9, 10, 100, right? And the reason is because effectively here, y is the value 10. So I'm passing in 10 into the function. So then 10 times 10 is going to be returned. So this is effectively saying y equals to 100. Yeah, very good. So you've gotten the idea of returning. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so before we move on to the exercise, one thing that also is useful about returning, right, is that or useful about functions in general is that you have kind of functions call one another. So we'll see an example of I'll run through this code to explain this tangled mess later, but inside the function you can call another function. Yeah. But for now, let's go on to the exercises, right? Yeah, you can go over to the exercises again. You can do Q3. So Q3 will get you familiarized with playing with the return. Yeah, that's right. you understand why 9 appears on the screen? Okay, so let's say if I change this 3 to 4, right? If I change this 3 to 4, can you guess what the output is going to be? Yeah, 16. You're muted by the way, but yeah, I can see that. Okay.
Yeah, 16.
Yep, very good, 16. So yeah, you can continue.
Uh,
It's not necessary for you to write the hashtags because the hashtags are comments. So
oh yeah.
yeah, it's for me to tell you what the output is going to be. Yeah.
So I just come up with a random variable.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just continue to play with it. Yeah, I provided an example here, but I will encourage you to get creative with it also. Okay, good.
Let me try running.
Then
Oh yeah.
you understand why the output is like that?
Uh, eh? Wait. Oh wait. I haven't print yet.
That's right. So setting a value equals a variable equals to a new value doesn't
Okay.
automatically. Yep, very good.
Um,
Yep. So what if let's say the last time you wrote y equals to square of y minus 2?
oh, y equals to square y minus 2.
Yeah.
I think it is. Oh, as in a new line. Okay.
Correct, correct.
Uh,
Mm. Then before you press run, right, are
okay.
you able to guess?
I think it is. Uh,
Okay, so remember to you can first calculate what the parameter that's going to be passed into the function is going to, what's the value of the parameter that
is
you
it
pass.
supposed to be 4 square?
Correct. Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah, very good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so make that make sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. So you can go ahead and submit this. Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
I think you've gotten the hang of.
Okay, can I ask, like, is it always you start calculating from like the brackets first? So it's
mm,
not like left to right or something.
uh, yeah, when you want to pass y minus 2 into the function, Python will make sure that it knows the entire value y minus 2 first, right? It's like y minus 2 is the value that you're trying to pass in. So Python will compute the value y minus 2 first.
Oh,
If
okay.
you if you have wanted to do it, let's say y equal to 6, right? And let's say you had wanted to square first, then minus 2, then you do something like square y, then close the bracket, and then minus 2. So then in this
Oh,
case, they'll think of square y as one number first. Right? In this case, it's going to be 36. And then 36 minus 2, then you compute. So there's a certain order of operations also. But yeah, makes
okay.
sense?
Yeah,
Okay, sure. So very good. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. So let's say I have this function over here. I have this function, a few functions. So you can declare multiple functions by writing multiple DEF, right? Each one having its own um, code block. So in this case, I have a square function that returns a times a, right? A is the parameter I take in. Then I have an add one function that returns a plus one, right? Whatever I pass in plus one. And I have this weird function called weird that takes in a, right? And it does some computations. It creates a variable called x equals to square of a, x equals to add one of x, and return x. Then I test a few functions here. So perhaps the first one makes sense, does it? Does the first one make sense?
Yeah.
The first output is just square of 3, right? Then the second one, add 1 of 10, I get 11, makes sense also. Okay, but what happens in the third one, right? So I have an animation for this. So you're passing in the value a equals to 2. So the arrow indicates where Python is executing, at which step, at which line of code. So a equals to 2. Then at the next line, I'm setting x equals the square of a, and a is the value 2. So x equals the square of 2. So square of 2, right? You'll call the square function and you return 4. Make sense? 2 squared is 4. Yeah. So that's why it's effectively setting x equals to 4. Okay. Then in the next line, right? X now x has the value 4. So the next line we're calling x equals to add 1 with the value 4 because I pass in x into the function. Okay. Right. Then add 1 of 4, right? It's going to give return 5. Makes sense? Add 1 of 4 is 5. And at the last line, we return the value of x, which in this case is 5. So that's why at the so weird of 2 returns 5, and that's why we see 5 appear on the screen. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So the key idea here is that in this case, when I call the weird function, it's going to go here, right? And then it's going to go to this, when you call square of a, it's going to jump into the square of a, return. So functions kind of makes Python jump around the code to many, many different places. Yeah, but it's a rather structured way because each time you declare a function, it's just a block of code. And after you finish the code, you leave and continue where you came from.
Oh, wait. So like basically the print at one doesn't go back to the square, right? It only
Mm,
goes to the def at one.
indeed, indeed,
Okay.
indeed. So the print at one only goes to the def at one, right? And it returns, yeah. So yeah, just because yeah, that's right, that's right. That's good that you point that out. Okay, so that's almost all for functions, but I have one last exercise for you to try, which is Q4. So in Q4, we are trying to put together everything that we learned so far, right? Which is for loops and functions, right? So in the previous example, I showed you an illustration of generating the Fibonacci numbers. It's okay, I just provided you the code, right? So yeah, you can follow the instructions and try to. So also over here, I'm providing from lines from instruction 1 to 5, I'm not really providing the exact code that you're going to see because this is briefly this is a terminology. So I'm also trying to get you used to the lingo, right? When people say takes in a parameter, then you automatically translate it in your head to opening square bracket, putting the parameter there. Yeah. Okay, very good. Okay, so currently at instruction 4, right? It says inside the for loop body, write that thing. So you have correctly written it out, but then the indentation is a bit off. So right now your fibo.append is inside the main code. It's not inside the for loop. You want this line 5 to be inside the for loop. So you can perhaps go to the start of line 5 and press tab twice to bring it into. Yep,
Oh, okay, okay.
yep, yep. And line 4, you can just delete line 4. It's just a blank line. Doesn't affect the code. Doesn't affect the code execution. Okay, very good. Oh, the autocomplete. Don't need to press tab. You just, yeah, okay. Yeah, the return needs to be inside the function. Yep, so you do it using single indentation. Okay, very good.
Taking in a parameter n. So I set the parameter, I just change the first line.
No, the first line would remain as n, right? Because and then when you want to, when I say for line instruction 8, I say call and print the function again, but this time means that you add a new line after your line 6, right? And write print to generate Fibo
20.
and 20. That's right. Yeah, so maybe setting the parameter and maybe isn't that a good word, right? Maybe I should say passing in the parameter n.
Oh, okay.
It's a passing action from line 7 to line 1. Yeah. So line 7 is adding, is giving, it's like wake up, generate Fibo, wake up. I pass you the value n equals 20. Then Fibo, okay, fine, let me run. Then Fibo will go back to sleep. And then line 7
Oh,
will continue. Yeah. So I think the word setting over here is a bit ambiguous. I could say passing. Okay.
okay.
Yeah. So if you execute this, you understand what you see the full output.
Yeah.
So it returns the list and you're printing out the list. So yeah. So actually with this concept is quite nice. This example is quite nice because we have covered the concept of printing, right? We've covered the concept of variables, right? We covered the concept of list indexing, right? Negative indexing. We've covered the concept of for loops, right? Return functions, function parameters, and returning values from the functions. And yeah, so this is quite a we just left with we just haven't done the conditionals yet. So yeah, so these are just some foundational basic concepts, and you're almost ready to, in a sense, your toolbox is almost complete already now. So there's just a few more small things to learn, right?
Okay.
Generally, functions and for loops are the major concepts that is the biggest tools in your toolbox. Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so if not, then that's all for today's lesson. Yeah. See
Okay.
you next time.
See
Bye.
you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
No problem. Bye.